I know what you're thinking. Nobody really believes they can march up to a cabin in broad daylight, crowbar in hand, and shout, "I know you're running some illegal political operation in there," right? But I swear that's exactly what happened the morning Karen Blackwood decided she was the last honest watchdog in America, and my quiet lakeside cabin was apparently her personal Watergate. I remember her voice echoing off the water crowbar, glinting in the sun, yelling about campaign finance violations and corrupt deals, and me standing inside sharing coffee with a state senator, just shaking my head like, here we go again. You know what I mean? Let me back up a sec. My name's Thomas Anderson. For the past decade, I've been escaping to Lake Serenity on weekends. It's the kind of place where the air still smells like pine needles and mornings start with loons calling across the water. In real life, I'm a senior partner at Anderson Associates, a firm that handles environmental policy and renewable energy legislation, which basically means I spend most of my time trying to wrangle politicians and industry folks into the same room without anyone storming out. The lake cabin. It's my hideout, my second office, and, as it turns out, the best venue in the state for private high-stakes political meetings far from the nosy eyes and microphones at the Capitol. Now here's what nobody but my closest colleagues knew: that cabin wasn't just for fishing or late-night whiskey by the fire. I set it up with secure lines, encrypted comms, meeting rooms designed for people who need to talk honestly and off the record. 2 hours from the Capitol, just remote enough for real work to get done. We'd host marathon sessions with government officials, debate over draft bills, hash out compromises that actually made it into law. Everything was legal, fully disclosed, all by the book, but privacy matters, and so does trust. Lake Serenity gave us both. The place attracted a certain kind of neighbor. Most folks kept to themselves, maybe waved from a fishing boat, grateful for the peace and quiet. Then, about 14 months ago, Karen Blackwood showed up, moving into the cabin across the cove. You ever meet someone who just radiates suspicion, like they're always searching for the hidden camera? That's Karen. She appointed herself to every HOA committee before she'd even finished unpacking, invented a job called Community Integrity Monitor, and started logging everyone's comings and goings like she was building a case for 60 minutes. At first, it was almost funny. I'd see her across the water with binoculars, jotting notes every time a car pulled up. Then she started taking pictures, collecting license plates, asking neighbors what they knew about my secret meetings. One day, she corners me while I'm carrying a stack of legislative folders out to the porch, just starts grilling me. "What are you hiding in there? Who are these government people you keep inviting?" I told her straight up, "Ma'am, I'm a registered lobbyist. We're doing real government work, all fully documented." She looked at me like I'd admitted to running a moonshine ring. It got worse. She started emailing the HOA board, insisting my monthly briefings were illegal political activity, claiming the covenants banned commercial influence peddling, and that she, as the self-declared community ethics officer, had the right to inspect my meetings. She even demanded to see my lobbying disclosures and meeting notes. I tried to explain calmly that not everything she didn't understand was corruption, but that just made her double down. She ramped up her investigations, photographing my guests running their plates, scouring the internet for connections. She built a spreadsheet, I kid you not, mapping out the suspicious patterns of who I met with and when. She started whispering to neighbors that my cabin was a hub for backroom deals, told the board I was a threat to community integrity, and even filed complaints with the State Ethics Commission, claiming I was violating lobbying laws. Every single time the state cleared me, but it was harassment, pure and simple. Now, what Karen didn't know, what most HOA vigilantes never bother to ask, is that the security protocols protecting government officials are no joke. Her behavior, it pinged alarms she didn't even know existed. State security started tracking her little integrity operation, building a file on her as someone interfering with legitimate government business. She was on a watch list before she even knew what hit her. But then she took it nuclear. After months of surveillance convinced she'd uncovered a criminal conspiracy, Karen decided she was going to break into my cabin and gather evidence herself during an actual policy meeting with elected officials inside. She literally planned out her little heist, recruited a couple of equally paranoid neighbors, picked a day when she saw extra cars in my drive, and marched over armed with a crowbar, lockpicks, and a camcorder. I watched the whole thing unfold on my security feed her in broad daylight, trying to pry open my door, all while my guests, including State Senator Patricia Williams, sat in the kitchen discussing an environmental protection bill. The moment she actually broke in, all hell broke loose. My alarm went off, government security protocols kicked in, and suddenly the state police, Capitol Security, and local law enforcement were descending on the property. I barely had time to look up before Karen was face to face with the senator, two Capitol security officers, and a legislative aide already dialing 911. The look on her face. I almost wish I'd gotten a picture. Righteous fury turning to pure terror in a heartbeat. Senator Williams, tough as nails, former prosecutor, immediately started documenting everything Karen said. The security guys took charge, reading Karen her rights, explaining calmly that community oversight doesn't include breaking and entering or harassing government officials. Karen kept insisting she was exposing corruption right up until they cuffed her and walked her out in front of half the lake. Let me tell you, watching her realize she was getting arrested in the middle of an actual government meeting by people who write the laws she thought she was upholding priceless. Her months of community protection became felony evidence, breaking and entering, criminal trespass, interference with government operations, harassment of elected officials, even domestic terrorism statutes got mentioned. State investigators found all her logs, surveillance notes, photos, even a floor plan she'd sketched of my cabin. Turns out, documenting your own crimes makes prosecution pretty easy. The fallout was instant. Word spread across the lake through state politics and into every HOA meeting for miles. The so-called integrity monitor arrested for targeting a sitting state senator. The association put out a statement in bold letters clarifying that nobody is authorized to break into homes or interfere with legitimate political work. Neighbors came forward to share stories about Karen's recruiting efforts, her wild theories, and all the pressure she'd put on anyone who questioned her. The case went all the way up, State Attorney General's office, special prosecutors, the whole 9 yards. Karen's lawyer tried to spin it as citizen oversight gone wrong, but with all the evidence, witness testimony, and video from my security system, it was an open and shut case. She eventually took a plea deal, prison time, probation, restitution for the damages and security costs, even had to sell her lake property to pay off the fines. And just like that, the biggest self-appointed hero at Lake Serenity was banned from any political or community activity for good. Funny thing is, all this chaos actually made my work easier. The state loved how quickly we locked down the site. The senator used it as a textbook example of why secure venues are essential for real policy work. And I ended up with more trust from officials who appreciated the professionalism and tight security. Even the lake community mellowed out, started appreciating what it means to respect privacy and legal boundaries. So was Karen right to be concerned about government activities in her community? Maybe. We need oversight, transparency, accountability, no question. But there's a line between watching out for your neighbors and becoming a vigilante who thinks conspiracy theories justify breaking the law. That line, turns out it's enforced by the state police, the AG's office, and about 100 pages of legal code. Here's my question for you. What would you have done? If you thought someone was hiding corruption, would you risk breaking the law to get proof or trust the system to handle it? Drop a comment. Share your own HOA or neighborhood horror story, and let's talk about where the line between community protection and criminal interference really lies. Justice isn't about who yells the loudest. It's about knowing the difference between real oversight and crossing into crime. And in the end, Lake Serenity's lesson is pretty simple. If you're going to accuse someone of breaking the law, You might want to make sure you're not the one committing the biggest crime of all.